From Donny Osmond.
Here we are, folks, another
We're
edition.
back.
We're back, another week. Good Friday, or what is it? Good. Why are we off early on Friday?
Friday's Good Friday.
Good Friday.
Yeah.
It's Easter week, folks.
You
Here
can tell
on
he's a good
Citizen
practicing
Watch.
Christian.
Exactly.
Citizen Watch on KYOS AM 1480, the power of local radio. I'm at the controls, and it's kind of fun. Have control of the dial here, and
He's
of course,
a control freak.
in studio.
You'll see in the show.
Robert, the Velvet Sledgehammer Tomasetti on mic 10, and Steve Colvard, the best engineer / co-host in the business.
Every time I look at Robert now, this song just jumps into my head. You ever heard that song, Velvet's in Love?
No, you guys are whack.
I think he
I'm
has
telling
somebody
you,
on
man,
the hook.
He does.
I don't know if it's the hook in his basement
he's
or
just got a little extra giddy up in his step, stars in his eyes. I mean, every time you look at
Because
him,
I was reading my
smile on his
horoscope.
face,
It says more time and effort
Man,
into personal
someone's
plans
in
of
love.
self-improvement.
he's keeping his
Avoid dealing with people who are
Velvet's in
demanding.
love.
That's you, Case.
keeping his now he starts talking, and I got to adjust the level. Sorry about that.
Can we
folks.
make a quick apology to the gentleman that wrote to the Sun Star this
Oh,
weekend?
I think we should talk about that.
I think his
Evidently,
name was Will Patterson.
Yeah,
Was that the-
I think it was Robert Patterson.
Robert
Our
Patterson?
War of the Worlds episode, as I
Yeah.
call it, which was April 1st. Folks, we are on the air. We're not going anywhere. I promise that we're going to be
And
here.
if you know Robert, I mean, I'm getting the feeling that maybe he just turned off the radio once and for all at the end of that show and never turned it back on, because we've been back since and let everybody know that we were just joking around. So if you know Mr. Patterson, maybe knock on his door and say, hey, give KYOS another try.
Yeah, well, that I always think that everybody listens to all 47 minutes of content, but in reality, people tune in and out, and if you're able to capture one segment, you're probably doing good. And so
I have an idea.
I think a lot of people thought that that was a
I have an
reality.
idea.
What's your idea, Robert?
Idea is that Casey, our writer at large that writes things for the newspaper under no byline or name, should write a letter to the editor as he does and as he has done in the past, and set the record straight.
I was thinking about that. I thought that we probably should get something in print, because some people only use certain media, and a lot of people just read the paper and listen to the radio. But we appreciate you listening to Citizen Watch on KYOS 1480 down here at the beautiful Studio C, ensconced at the Radio Merced headquarters here at 1020 West Main Street, 95340. If you want to send us a letter, our tip line I should give out. And, of course, I have got some calls on that tip line lately. Our tip line's area code 209-406-8728. And folks may not know what we're talking about, but last show, Robert decided to dig into that pocket of his, spread that wallet open, get the cobwebs off it, and buy a $10 gift card for anybody that wants to guess
Casey's weight.
Guess my weight.
Guess
which,
Casey's weight.
after
He's
Thursday
a
night
handful,
show,
buddy.
Thursday night show, I'm sitting there listening to the last little bit of the show, and here comes the phone ringing. And I answer it, and it's this really nice lady named Kalila. And she goes, I want to guess Casey's weight. And I'm like, okay. She didn't know she was talking to the man himself. And she goes, I want, and I got her phone number. And of course, I got a text Saturday morning from one of the scions of the community, one of the Merced 300, Jim Abate, who is a advertiser here on KYOS, and he put in his 2 cents. I felt like calling him back and saying, if it wasn't for that dollar menu.
Now, is there any way we can maybe get a picture of you, like maybe in your swimsuits or something?
No, I don't think so. We're not.
We'll post it to the website so people
Did you
can
ever
take a
see?
look.
Hey, did you ever see Baby Huey on commercials? I mean, in cartoons.
You guys are blowing the board up here.
Hey, what's up? You
Yelling
remember
in that
Baby
mic
Huey?
like that.
That's what Casey looks like.
I think we'll
Look,
just get Casey in a Speedo.
If I didn't
We'll take a
have-
picture of him. We'll put it up on the KYOS website.
weird.
That way people can tap
You're
in.
weird.
They can look at the picture before they guess. How are they supposed to know how much he weighs? Are they just going to base it on his voice or what?
Hey,
If I didn't have such a
this
good
is a-
sense of humor,
This is a non-visual medium here. No one
look,
knows
people
what he
tune
looks like.
in to hear real news on
I mean,
Citizen
Abate
Watch.
knows what you look like.
Yeah,
And so
Abate, Mr. Abate does
What was
know
he
what I
could
look
Rush
like.
Limbaugh, but
What was the
bigger.
guess from the female, the Kiala or
The
whatever?
female, God bless her heart, guessed 265. Jim Abate guessed 275. And just to let you know, this is the closest to my weight. We're not going to get exact. So there's only 2 of you in the running. We tried to get John Pedroso to participate in the pool, but he was afraid. I think maybe he thought we were going to do him next. But
I got one for John just in a couple of weeks. Just trust me, I got one for
yeah,
John. in a couple of weeks.
Robert had a good contest, but we're not going to divulge what the parameters are. But folks, it's tax day. It's April 15th. It's time to get your taxes paid.
Oh wait,
What, the other go ahead.
Real quick, because you're going to just go like a
No, I'm
steamroller.
not going to go on. We all
My friend Robin Pirro, her birthday's today.
Well, happy birthday, Robin.
She's 50-something, but today is her birthday.
And
Happy
she works
birthday,
out
Robin
there
Pirro.
at Merced College.
She manages the Merced College bookstore.
And her husband
Vincenzo, Vinny,
teaches.
and it's not Scambray, it's Pirro.
Teaches
He
out at Merced College.
English.
So we have
Short little fellow. We call him Penguin because he waddles.
He has those little alligator arms. He's the cutest guy, but yeah, no, they're really good people. Robin
You know
does
what
a great
else
job
happened
at the
today?
library. Well, it's the anniversary
Of
the Boston Marathon bombing.
and the Titanic sank today.
I didn't know that.
Nope.
Boy,
You sure?
That's what I heard on the radio this morning.
April 15th?
Well, I know that
1912?
it was 19-something, but today is
12.
the anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. 3 people killed, 260 injured seriously by those 2 Islamic terrorists. I don't care what you want to call them. You can call them lone wolves, but they were trying to promote their position of thought. And thank God we killed one. And if the shots would have been a little more on, we wouldn't have a trial. But the other guy's sitting in the federal pen. He's looking at life in prison. I just can't believe there are people that still believe he was set up and that he really didn't do it, where the evidence is overwhelming that he did. The other thing, it's coming up on the anniversary of Columbine, and that's going to happen next week. I hope there's no copycats out there that are going to do anything. But
How
you know,
long ago was that now?
You know, I was in the 90s, I want to say.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of kids don't even remember that now. One of the things I wanted to talk about tax day is
Wait, go back into your... I wanted you, really and honestly, I think you should go into your Pittsburgh. This is a time...
Well, I'll
of our
talk
show.
about that a little bit. We have 3 segments, and
Yeah, but I thought you should tie it all together because I wanted to make
okay. You know, one of the things last week that I didn't get to talk about, there was a stabbing at a school in Pittsburgh. 20-some kids were stabbed, some seriously. I don't think anybody died that I know of. I know there were some in critical condition, but this young man had a knife. And I find it interesting that the national discussion hasn't turned to, we need to ban knives.
Nope.
You know, because whenever you hear of a school incident, we always and it's usually been shootings.
Mm-hmm.
Columbine, as I mentioned, and that's a good tie, Robert. Columbine, Eric Klebold and Dylan used guns, had canister
Weren't they
bombs
like Matrix?
with propane. They had shotguns.
They wore their dress, their mode of attire was like Matrix with the
Yeah.
black dark sunglasses and a long coat.
Called them the trench coat mafia. These were kids that were supposedly bullied, and they finally took revenge on their fellow classmates and teachers. And all we heard was guns, guns, guns. And police tactics changed in America after Columbine. We had what we call active shooter training, because what happened at Columbine, by the time the SWAT team showed up, they were already dead. And there was a lot of kids that were bleeding out. And so now the tactics within the police department, which I've done a lot of training with, is you go in while the situation is still evolving. You move through the corridors or the building, and you actively look for these guys, and you don't set up the old way was you set up a perimeter, you tried to negotiate, blah, blah, blah. They realized that these people were going to kill people no matter what. And so you go in now and you try to stop the threat.
Wait, say that again. These people were going to kill people no matter what. Who is going to kill?
The Eric Klebold and Dylan, they were
Exactly.
hell
So
bent on killing as many people as they could. There was no
They were hell
negotiation
bent,
with
right?
them.
Wait, here's my point. They were hell bent, right?
Right.
Okay, the guns that they were toting weren't hell bent.
No.
The people were.
And that's what gets into the Pittsburgh thing with the people getting stabbed. There were several people stabbed. It was only 200 feet of corridor this kid went down. 200 feet. And it was a very serious 5 minutes was the length of the attack. And luckily a teacher and some other students tackled this kid, got the knives away from him. But I just find it interesting how the political winds didn't pick up on this. We don't have Obama standing up or elected standing up and saying, hey, we need to regulate knives. You know, if you're not a chef or, you know.
Wait, but how stupid would it go? Butter knives and things like that. Because let's be honest, they've taken things to an incredibly stupid mentality. Right. And the thing I was trying to make a point with Columbine was, when you look at this, it's the people that kill. It's not the material they use. Like, for example, I got back from Las Vegas and they're shaking people down for nail clippers. And I'm thinking, you know what?
Right.
A Green Beret or a ninja can mess you up with their thumb. Anything they can pick up. It doesn't make a difference what. But here you are going through these machines that supposedly can X-ray, through walls better than Superman.
Right.
But yet they have you strip,
Right.
and they get you there barefoot. Your drawers are falling down because you got to take off your belt, and
Right.
you got your hats off, and you look like bedhead, and it's kind of embarrassing a little bit. And they use Gestapo techniques, this TSA, because they're looking for criminals.
Well, it's just like the Boston Marathon bombing. You see a moratorium on pressure cookers. It gets to people's intent. What's in people's minds? What's between their ears?
But yes,
So
and-
you can get you can outlaw all the guns you want, all the heavy ammunition clips, the 30, 40 round
and they're
clips.
using and the thing that I'm glad for this. I know it sounds sad, and you got to understand my intent here. I am glad that it was a pressure cooker. I am glad that it is a knife, because I believe in the Second Amendment, and I think that the government goes too far.
I do too.
I think that people go too far. I'm waiting for, now you guys are going to laugh at me for this one, but I'm waiting for people to sue a car company, okay, for an accident causing death or dismemberment, because there's no a disclaimer in your car
Right.
that says that using this at high rates of speed may cause death or dismemberment. I think that people have gotten asinine in things, and they pick up an agenda and they run with it. And that's why I said you and I, and the reason I brought this up is Casey and I had this dialogue last night over dinner about the pressure cookers. And isn't it funny that nobody's going out there about the, how silly it would be, or Saturday Night Live isn't doing a skit with butter knives or something,
Right.
but they do it with guns. And I just have a problem with that, because to me, it's the people that kill, and not the guns, and not
it
the
is.
knives, and not the pressure cookers.
And I think the common thread that you see with the Columbines and this guy from Pittsburgh is they're bullied.
Whacked.
They're bullied.
Yeah.
They're the ones.
No,
the victims of bullying.
okay, no, don't go there, because I was at a thing, and we'll talk about it on Thursday, because I don't have my material. And this is what I was talking about, Casey, this morning when you were trying to say what you wanted to do. And that is I visited Saturday. It was called the Week of the Young Child. And they had a big old thing in Applegate Park. And one of the things they had out there was, and it's funny, Steve brought this up, was bullying. Mm-hmm. When I was bullied, my dad said, you find the kid, you look at him, you don't give him a chance, and you just start punching the shit out of his face,
Right.
until the kid realizes that he's not going to bully you anymore.
Right.
We get women on the radio that sit there and say, my daughter was cyberbullied. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
what's
folks.
the term you can't use now with little girls? Pushy.
No, I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, that you can't call them
Well, that's-
bossy. You can't call them bossy. I
Pushy,
think.
I thought was the term with people with a lisp.
No, this is they want to stop calling young ladies
You're so
bossy because they think it's sexist,
Yeah.
sexist,
Yeah.
and makes them less
See,
assertive.
That's
I
the
know
problem.
it's it's ridiculously overly politically correct. I agree 100%. This
Because
country,
when-
it's crazy.
Were
the
you
things
not?
we
No,
talk about
look,
in this country?
Steve and I am
Almost like they
I'm
need to
smaller
find
than
stuff
Steve.
to talk about.
I'm smaller than Steve. Steve sends me text messages where no, I'm being serious. We're friends, and I used to be a decent racquetball player, and Steve keeps whipping my butt, and so
Right.
Steve throws these barbs at me through text. Now I could easily go to Damien, our station manager, and say I'm being bullied.
I feel uncomfortable.
I'm
Yes.
I'm not bullying you.
Excuse me, but that's my imperception.
I'm not bullying you at all.
When you say bring it, I'm thinking bring what? I just feel threatened.
Well, folks, it is April 15th, Tuesday, and depending on when you hear this show. But one thing I wanted to bring up was what they call Tax Freedom Day.
What is that?
Tax Freedom Day is the day that you've worked enough through the years to pay your federal, state, and local tax burden. And even though today is April 15th and we need to do our tax returns for last year, we're still not out of the woods for this year. Our Tax Freedom Day here in California is April 30th.
So
we
let's
still have
get
another
this-
15 days to go. You basically have to work 120 days for the man to pay your freight here
And
in
then
California.
everything else is ours.
Wow.
And then
That's
everything
mind-boggling.
else is ours. Now, we're the fourth highest, as I stated on the last show.
33% of the year.
Who's first?
About 33%. Exactly. You figure 365 days, about 33% of the year, which is a relative normal tax burden.
Hey, we're fourth. Who's first?
I read it was either Connecticut, I think, is number one.
You know who has the least transparent state government?
Who?
California.
California. Oh, well.
far.
No, it's our approval rating. I was reading where Congress's approval rating is 17%. Makes you wonder how anybody running for Congress when it get elected, just not being an outsider. In California, it's about 44%.
Well,
Our
wait.
legislature, our felonious legislature.
Go back to that real quick, Case.
Yeah.
You said What is it? How much percent is the people?
17%.
Go-
17% on congressional, 44% in California.
Okay,
Approval rating.
With that number, how do people get reelected?
Well, it makes you wonder. They have obviously a strong base. They're pandering to their base, the unions, that sort of thing here in California. But I just found it interesting that Tax Freedom Day is still a couple of weeks away for people, and I'm sure the government appreciates you. And you ask yourself, what are you getting for that? What am I getting for my 120 days of slavery to the government to pay for all of these programs that I don't necessarily agree with?
Well, what are you supposed to get from it?
Well, I think
you're supposed to get a national defense.
You're supposed to get a national defense, and you're supposed to
regulation of foreign trade,
economic prosperity, or not prosperity, but to benefit the economic, machine, if you will, because we are a capitalistic society. And other than that, I don't know, these social programs, very controversial. Like I say, there's more takers than givers, and they really do need those taxes out there. But we're coming up on our first break, folks, and we want you to stay with Citizen Watch here on KYOS AM 1480. If you want to review any of these old shows of ours, you can go on YouTube and type in KYOS space 1480 AM, and you will get all of our previous shows. We're having great hits, and we really appreciate the listeners. And again, we're not going anywhere. We are here. It was just an April Fool's joke, but we appreciate you, and we'll be Folks, welcome back to the second segment of Citizen Watch here on Tax Day. Not Tax Freedom Day, but Tax Day. You either have to get that extension in or send them your money. A lot of people have already sent in their money, got their returns, and they've already spent it. We were talking about, I was talking to one of our former guests, Ernie, with E&J Automotive, and I said, hey, are you busy? And he goes, well, it's kind of slow. He goes, the people that have already got their returns have spent the money. And the people that have to pay taxes, they don't have the money to do things because they have to pay their burden to society. So it's kind of a slow time of year. It's funny, I want to give a shout out to Banner Transmission over there on 18th Street. Joe, who runs the joint, I have a little problem with one of my vehicles, and I took the transmission out, brought it back here to California because I just couldn't find a good deal in Oklahoma. And I know Joe. He's done a lot of work for a lot of businessmen here in town. He's been around for a long time, and I trust him. And I said, I don't want to spend too much. He goes, hey, you know what? We're going to test this thing first, put it on a dyno, make sure you do need a complete rebuild, make sure it isn't something simple. And it's that kind of service that I really appreciate. But I was talking to Joe about the regulation that he goes through in town, or with the state, and Ernie had mentioned that with E&J Auto about how many permits he has to have. He does smog checks and things, and Joe, being a transmission shop, everything has to be really clean. I remember taking a transmission rebuild class in Merced College, and the whole key to everything is it has to be super clean. It's nothing more than a big hydraulic pump, and you have all these seals and little things in there, and if you get any dirt, you're really screwed up. Well, Joe has this machine that cleans the transmission and the cases, and it uses a special kind of fluid, and he has to have it serviced every once in a while. And we were talking about government regulation. He goes, the guy came in the other day to service my washing machine, if you call it, parts washer, and it's normally $75 to $80. And the guy threw the invoice on the desk, $275. And he goes, whoa, wait a minute, $275? And he goes, well, new regulations in the state of California, environmental regulations. We're confined by the government what we can do. And again, I understand the purpose of this, folks. We need to have regulations. We can't just, build a Fukushima in our backyard and pollute ourselves. But a fourfold increase in that. And here the guy that serviced this particular parts washing machine was the owner of the company. And he was driving the truck himself that day because he goes, one, if I don't, I can't afford to make a profit.
Right.
He goes, I appreciate you hanging in there with me, but if I don't drive the truck, plus he was doing a little PR, being the owner of the company, saying, hey, this is what's going on. So I asked Joe, I said, well, don't you pass that on? He goes, Casey, I have to pass it on to my customers. And I think people don't realize that when we talk about clean air and clean water, they sound great and they're great buzzwords, but it has an effect financially and economically, not only to Joe, who runs Banner Transmissions, but to Casey, who's getting his transmission fixed. And I call it the death of 1,000 cuts. How much more can we take?
Well,
How much more
let
can
me
we
ask you
afford?
guys a
Waiting to
question.
death, I think.
Okay, and this is something I always thought about, and I actually thought about that last night because Casey and I, we brief, is what he wants to talk about today. And he was telling me about this story, and I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't it be interesting to find out how much of these regulations is about hijacking the public for money,
Right.
and how much of it is actually for public service good? Like, for example,
I'd say 80-20.
okay, now wait a minute.
80% hijack,
I do
20%
not-
for public good.
I do
would be
not
my
wear
guess.
my seatbelts when I drive. Okay? Whatever. I got in a car accident about 4 years ago, and Casey says, well, Robert, seatbelts. I said, wait a minute. Do seatbelts really save lives? They say they do, but I have a Volkswagen that the whole compartment is airbags. Those airbags deployed, I didn't move them. I didn't move. And I'm thinking, when we have these people with this regulation and that regulation, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't do this because it's unsafe, and you can't do they ever do a study backwards and say, hey,
I think they haven't when it comes to seatbelts. I mean, I think they've said that traffic fatalities are down substantially since the
is that?
seatbelt law.
But wait a minute. Is it
think that's
because
what
of
they say.
seatbelt, or is it because of the makeup of the car?
With
Because
the
what car
airbags?
airbags, crash points, crumpled points, things shear away. They don't. It's not like you're driving a '66 Newport where that that piece comes shearing through the.
My opinion is the government has gotten so large that they have to continually find ways to generate revenue, and they can only do that through taxes, bond floats, fees, and
Regulation.
fines. And I think the taxpayers are sick of it, so I think the bond floats and the tax increases are going to be voted down.
I
so
hope
the only
so.
thing they have left
But I'm going to be honest with you
is
guys.
fines and fees, and that's why traffic tickets are
I'm-
going to go up.
Four
Parking
times.
But I'm
tickets
going
are
to be
gonna go
honest
up.
with you guys.
You
and I were
that's the only
talking-
way they can pay the beast, and that's
Remember
a
we were-
scary dynamic to me. When your law enforcement becomes a revenue-generating wing of your
Well, that's why
government,
they call it law enforcement.
anarchy is going to
It
reign.
used to be peace officer. They were the keepers of the peace.
And
Now
look
it's
at
law
the
enforcement.
relationship law enforcement has with the public right now.
Terrible.
It's scary, terrible. I mean, I was able to witness an incident here recently in this town where somebody was pulled over for something. I don't even know what it was, and I think there was 4 CHP cars and a couple city police cars, and it was an apartment complex. And the citizens of the apartment complex, the residents, came out into the parking lot because all the lights were flashing.
They wanna know.
You should have heard the comments that the public was making to the law enforcement people. I mean, the total lack of respect and just you guys are the biggest thugs in this town. You're the biggest gang. You guys are extorters.
Where do you live?
But my point is it was almost uncomfortable to be in because it was like this crowd of people just continued.
It's like
to
a percolator.
gather. Yeah, like they were almost getting ready to attack the cops.
It was their point to sit in a
And
crowd and yell.
What I
yell
took
barbs.
from that was I've never lived in this country where the citizenry and the law enforcement have been at such conflict. I've never experienced such conflict in my life.
But
And I think a byproduct of that is people are tired of getting screwed. It's
know
little
what it is?
people make mistakes and they're sent to the poorhouse because they made a mistake.
But I'm going to disagree with you on this one point. We talked about this when we were discussing a show or two back with Casey about the new regulations for parking in handicap zones. Okay? Right. Now, here's the thing I have a problem with. First of all, it's misleading. The law misleads you. What they do is they're so damn lazy, the cities, to make those non-parking spots appropriate. Now, let me share with you this. If you park in a slashed spot next to a dumpster, it's $40. If you park into any kind of fire lane, it's $40. It's a no parking. And what that is that's the cross lines.
On here locally?
Yeah. Anywhere.
I don't think it's $40 anymore.
Well,
it's
but
going
here's the point. They're white. Yeah. Now, I was watching at West America Bank, and these kids were pulling in to make deposits. And I said, "Oh, dude." He said, "What?" And I said, That's going to be an $1,100 parking violation. What you talking about? I said, well, first of all, that's a non-parking spot. Yeah, it's like $50. So what? If they catch me, fine. I go, no. See what's right next to it? It's handicapped. Well, why ain't they paint it blue? Right. And I said, because they're too lazy to paint them blue. He said, blue is handicapped. Yellow is loading. Well, and I said, you're right.
The modern day tax collector has become law enforcement, in my opinion. And that is, I've never in my life lived through this paradigm. And it's going to become nothing more than continually get more adversarial because no one likes the tax collector, especially when they got you bent over a barrel and you can't do anything about it. And, if you look at it, they fine you, and then they tack on all these little ticky-tack fees.
Oh, yeah, there's an administration fee.
Yeah,
there's a girl filing fee.
Accept your check fee.
$12.50 fee that goes to the state for every parking
and I'm
ticket.
telling that is what's going to be the fulcrum. That's going to be the match. That's going to be the fuse that lights the next big things that happens in this country. It's going to be the relationship between the citizenry and law enforcement.
Well, we saw that in Nevada this last week played out with
it's scary. It is absolutely scary. We are in scary times right now, in my opinion.
Regulation went too far. A couple of things, folks. The grand jury here in Merced County is looking for new members. You can apply down there at the courthouse. They're going to pick the new members, I believe, sometime in June.
You can't go to the courthouse during lunch on your lunch hour.
Robert went down to try to get some information, and everybody was at lunch and said, hey, don't bother me. I went down to the county yesterday, and it was like... I should have sent in a request first to walk in the door. It's just amazing, the attitude down there. Talk about no customer relations or customer service. Just like you're doing, you're just inconveniencing them to even show up and ask them for something.
Amen.
First thing is, well, you can get that online. I said, my printer's out of ink. Now what do we do? Yeah. Can you pry yourself out of that chair for 2 minutes and give me a form?
You know who was wonderful? Casey and I were talking about it, and I thought about being on the grand jury. Hopefully, that would be kind of cool. So Casey says, well, you got to go to the county building and go to Fincher's office. I go into Fincher's office. There was nobody there, a girl. And she didn't know anything. And I said, I need this. And all of a sudden on the side, you hear blah, blah, blah. So anyways, the only person that was very helpful was a young lady named Annette up on the 3rd floor. She said, Robert, what do you need? And I said, you got, and what happened is I happened to look at the job postings. And they had some jobs that were posted that were janitorial. They were, because, every now and then we talk about this. And I told her what I wanted. She was very helpful. It was during lunch hour. And she go, okay, go here. You can pull them off. We don't really have a copy of that, but this is how you can find it. She was awesome, and her name was Annette. And she's on the 3rd floor, and she did such a great job. She was the only one that was very helpful.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's not the norm down there. I had a call from a gym in Atwater asking me about Tony Dosetti. I called him a weather vane. Whichever way the wind blows, that's the way Tony goes.
It's a big weather vane.
Yeah, well, he's
if anybody
not that
knows
good of a
Tony.
Weather vane. Jim goes, well, what were you talking about? And I said, well, this was in reference to the Mansionette development over there off of G Street and Yosemite Avenue, a building that Dr. Laccaretti wanted to get the zoning change from residential to commercial. And Tony had originally voted no to the zoning change, stood behind the residents over there at Mansionette. And this was a project that had been at the previous city council when Mayor Bill Spriggs, who used to have a pen and pencil shop here in town, Spriggs Stationery, people might remember that. Anyway, it was that council's purview, and the city planning department didn't do the I's and the T's right, and so it got kicked to the next council. And so when it came through, there was a lot of promotion by the residents there to not have this project commercial because they were promised a residential development behind their house. So Tony went along with that. He stood behind the residents. He saw the light. Well, a year later, the applicant came back and asked to have the zoning issue reconsidered, and suddenly Tony changed his vote. And he didn't stand behind the residents. And really nothing changed in the project. His excuse was weak, and it had no merit. And he was the only one. And so his vote, unfortunately, allowed the project to go through. Now, that project hasn't been built, folks. And the reason it hasn't been built because of Obamacare. And things have changed in the medical landscape. And Dr. Laccaretti can't get anybody to go in there, not even his own father, because there's no money in it.
To invest in, you mean?
To investment. So anyway, Mr. Dosetti is running for District 3 Supervisor in Atwater, and I think the folks of Atwater are concerned how he's going to be as governance. And all I can say is, well, whichever way the wind blows, that's the way Tony goes. Yeah. And I think that it shows a lack of leadership. He was a forgettable chief of police, and he's even more forgettable as a councilman. So if people want to use him as a supervisor, beware. Right. Because I don't think Mr. Dosetti, he aligns himself to whatever's popular. Because I saw you, Tony, when you met with Bill Spriggs down there at Bella Luna, and you had that little confab, and suddenly your vote changes. So why? So it'll be interesting to have Mr. Dosetti in during this election season and talk about why you changed your vote, Tony, because if that's the way you govern, I would caution the people of Atwater to choose carefully in this election.
And there's another candidate out there who's a school board member.
Mr. Snyder, Will Snyder III, another one that's kind of blowing in the wind.
Well, whisper some things in our ear about a certain gentleman that we pursued vigorously.
We'll continue.
And I guess we will continue. But my point is now that he is running for District 3 supervisor, all of a sudden he seems to have made nice with this individual that he came in here talking very unflatterly about. And
suddenly what was an issue isn't an issue. And
Exactly
folks, this is
right.
the good old boy, just a good old boy. This is a system we talk about that needs to be dismantled in this country,
be aware
county.
of that gentleman too, you Atwater voters.
That's right.
Here's another guy that six the dogs on an individual, and as soon as there's some kind of agreement reached,
Yeah,
between
what
the two of
happened?
them
What
about
happened behind
support,
the scenes? Suddenly an issue is not an issue?
Exactly right.
Bull. So,
I
we're
think
going to
that
have,
whole-
on
guys-
Thursday's show, we're going to have one of the sheriff's candidates come in, Mr. Swigert. He's going to come in for a couple of segments, give his position. We encourage all of the sheriff's candidates to come in, actually, and any candidate that's running for office, 209-406-8728. You can call us. We're going to try to reach out to you, get you in here before the June primary. First Tuesday in June is when we make a decision. There'll probably be runoffs in some of these races if people don't get the full 50+1. But anyway, I just wanted to respond to Jim in Atwater, his question, why I called Tony a weather vane, why I said that he was indecisive.
Could be a couple of weather vanes in that district.
Well, I think so. And so you need to
but you know what I was
really
gonna
research.
say.
Go ahead, Robert.
You look at all four candidates.
In the District 3 race,
Yeah.
Lynn Davis,
And I'm going to...
Will Snyder III, Tony Dosetti, and Darren McDaniels.
I finally met Lynn Davis.
Yeah.
He supported the Idlos Atwater Merchants Night. Thank you, Lynn. But some things he said makes me think that he's a little bit, this is my opinion, that he's a little bit out of touch with what's going on.
He's very out of touch. He doesn't even know
Okay.
what the district attorney's doing.
I think that Tony Dosetti did a couple of years as city council, and now all of a sudden he thinks he's a seasoned veteran where he can run for...
Yeah, what's the deal, Tony? You still got 3 years left in your term.
But the situation is he has that right.
Well-
Now, I don't think, and my thing with Tony is he lives in Merced. He lives in that sliver piece of Merced. And I think in order to understand and to be a viable candidate for
Atwater.
that you need to know the Atwater politics. They have some things going on there that are very different and very unusual, and I think you really need to be there. You can't just go there to show up for baby kissings. Okay, so Tony, I think you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because you live in that sliver of Merced that's lumped in the Atwater. And I think,
and the Mansionette sliver isn't in Tony's district. So he's not worried about what he did over there at Mansionette. Folks,
I don't know what it is, but
the great
other
thing is Tony will have an opportunity to explain his change of position. Hopefully,
Sure wanna hear it,
We'll
Tony.
get him on the show, and like I said,
More than welcome.
That's what we're all about here. This is our understanding of things. Mr. Snyder also.
Exactly.
Come in, explain.
Mr. Davis.
This is a friendly fire zone.
This is.
All we're trying to do is get the best men and women for the jobs.
And your vote stands. All we have to you meet 24 times a year down there at City Hall, and all we have is your record to go on because that's what you stand on is your record, folks. We're coming up to our second break here on Citizen Watch on AM 1480 KYOS, the voice of the Valley. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Folks, welcome to the third and final segment of Citizen Watch on KYOS AM 1480. We appreciate you sticking with us, listening to us. For all of those, the War of the Worlds episodes, we were just joking. We're not going anywhere, I promise. Management hasn't kicked us out. Robert hasn't done anything lately to get us gone, but we do have the Velvet Sledgehammer in studio, and Steve Colvard sitting here on the other side of the engineered board, and I'm over here trying to run the controls. Hopefully it's acceptable. And I really appreciate the opportunity to learn a little bit more about how to do this. Folks, our words breathe. Our thoughts burn. We're not benign. We're trying to make a difference in this community because we want to see Merced be the best it can be. There was a survey here done not too long ago that Merced is the 5th most boring city in California. I take exception to that. I think we have many exciting things coming on. A lot of these surveys and polls that we hear, they're based on, number of restaurants, number of things for kids to do, nightlife, that sort of thing. But we have a lot going for us. We have the University of California. We have Yosemite up north of us, or to the south of us here. It's something that I think there's lots to do in Merced, and I don't think we're the fifth most boring city in California, but
being a boring city is not always a bad thing.
well, no, you kind of like a slower pace, and I think that's having lived in metropolises. It's nice to have a.
Ask yourself this: Las Vegas is probably the number one happiness place, and let me ask you: do you want to raise your children and family in Las Vegas with everything that go? Look, you want a small town? We're 2 hours from everything. We take it for granted. I went to Yosemite and people said, hey, people in Europe, they spend their whole lives saving for a vacation to go to Yosemite. I go to the coast. I go to Monterey. Asia spends tons of money to come to Monterey. We're a hop, skip, and a jump from either side, 2 hours from San Francisco, and yet everybody wants to bitch and complain that it is so boring here. Well, I'll tell you what, I'd rather raise my family here than in, those happening places.
Yeah, I agree with you. One thing we were talking about having one of the sheriff's candidates, Mr. Swigert, come in. I'm sure he'll correct me on his name, but the Tea Party's having a debate this Thursday night at the VFW Hall at 6:30. The VFW Hall's there on Main Street in Atwater, and they're going to have all of the sheriff's candidates there. I would really encourage people to go there. It's April 17th, 6:30 p.m. I would encourage you to go there, listen to what they have to say. They had a very good debate a few weeks ago with the District 3 candidates, all except Mr. Snyder, I believe, attended. And out of that, of course, we heard a retraction from Lynn Davis. Hey, I didn't mean that Larry doesn't prosecute any cases. I said he's reluctant. No, we know what you said, Lynn. You said he doesn't. So you can go back on your words. And I would really encourage people to go and listen for themselves. Hear the words, hit their eardrums, let it process through your brain, and make a decision. Because I'll tell you, the sheriff's race is very important to the direction of our county. And what I'm going to ask every candidate, just so you know when you come in here, is who's going to be your undersheriff? Because the undersheriff position is almost as important as the sheriff. He's the sheriff's right-hand man. And law enforcement is different today. It's not just going out and busting heads and, rounding people up. You got to have a good relation with your troops, but you also have to have a good relation with the powers to be, where the money comes from. Right. We saw that we lost out on the jail, the $40 million to build a new jail. We got this Swiss cheese jail out here at Sandy Mush that anybody can break out of. It's not meant for long-term criminals. Well, let me tell you, I think it's up to the criminal whether they want to be long-term, because they just kick out a wall and go.
And I got to tell you also, Casey, another thing on that plate I'd put is the relationship with the public.
That's right.
I mean, I'll tell you,
Perception.
what I witnessed the other night was scary. I mean, it was almost like the citizenry was ready to jump the police.
Folks, people don't realize that our sheriff's department, 90% of the employees over there, 90% of the troops have 5 years or less, 60 months or less. That does not bode well for a department. You need to have people that are in it for the long time, the long term. And when you have here? When you have nepotism, when you have the good old boy system, and this is what we rally against. Now, we're not casting any aspersions against our former sheriff. He was a great guy. We loved having him here on the radio, and I miss his pontifications on Saturday morning because, brother, that was a thesaurus and a half to listen to him speak. But the problem is look at the number of people jumping in the race. That indicates to me that there needs to be a change, and only for the good of the public. And so it'll be nice to hear these individuals, what their vision of the change that needs to happen. And all of them have said in their rhetoric, we need to go in a new direction. And what that means is the direction we were going ain't the right direction. So I encourage people to go to the meeting, to contact these folks. Again, that's going to be at the VFW Hall on Thursday at 6:30. If you get there a little late, don't worry, you're not going to miss much. And it's kind of cramped over there, so arrive early. But I really think that that's important for people to attend. Today is another anniversary, the final day to sign up for Obamacare. The final day, folks. We had a 15-day delay, and, today's the final day. One thing I also wanted to talk about, we're going to talk more about it on the Thursday show after we interview the sheriff's candidate, is I've got some really good information on an issue that's come up here with the Merced Union High School District. And I have to apologize that I didn't bring the paperwork in this morning, but I've received a Sheriff's Department report about an individual over there that's in charge of the technology end of the high school district. And as you know, we're going to the glass classroom. Okay, textbooks are gone. Everything's going to be taught on computers. So the IT department, the technology department, is going to be an integral part of our children's learning. And evidently there's an individual over there that's in charge of the ID department, and the reason he got his job was through a diploma mill. Now, if people don't know what a diploma mill is, this is where you send some money to a P.O. box in Antigua or the Dominican Republic or something, and suddenly you're a doctor. And how many times have we heard where people have been caught with fake degrees? You know, they're practicing medicine and they're not really a doctor, or they're being a lawyer and they haven't really done the bar. Well, we have the same incident going on over there at V. Scott Scambray.
Vinny!
Yeah, we have the same incident going over there at the Merced Union High School District. And like I say, I have the police report I'm going to read from. And just to capsulize here in a little bit, what happened is the sheriff investigated it. They contacted the Merced Union High School District, and they said, yeah, we accepted this diploma mill. The individual was supposed to have a BA or a BS in some sort of technology trade from an accredited university or an accredited learning institution. And this particular learning institution was called Almeda University. Not Alameda, but Almeda. It's a well-known diploma
Who is
mill.
Al?
I don't know who Al is, but it's a well-known diploma mill on the internet. They're based out of the I don't know, someplace out overseas.
Azores.
You know, nobody.
So basically, you're saying there's no curriculum really.
There's no curriculum.
Well,
No,
we
you
don't
send
know
in,
if it's...
You send in for it's based on life experience. It's kind of like we talked about Dumar's replacement over at the public defender's office.
And you know what's scary about
The
that?
New Age Life Law School.
Yeah, guilty.
But the scary thing about that is in the education system, your pay is based upon how many
Yes.
degrees
This
you have.
this is the thing that concerns me is this gentleman's pay went up approximately $30,000 a year based on phony credentials. Okay, and as far as I know, he's still over there. And this is what we're paying for, folks. And this is where Steve and I and Robert, I think, to a degree, agree that it's time to cut off the heroin. It's time to cut off the money. These folks come to us with hat in hand. We need more. We need more. Well, what are you doing with the money you have? And what this begs me to ask the question of Mr.
Vinny.
Scott Scambray is
Genzo.
how many other people are doing this over there at the school district? Because as
Let
you
me
and
fi-
I
hey,
know,
you know what? Let me do that. I'll do that as a project.
when you're a new teacher,
I'll
a
report
newbie
back.
coming out of college or whatever, you get a certain pay. And then as it goes along, and Roberts eloquently talked about this in the university system, where you have these six-figure people that don't do any teaching. They put it to their teacher's assistants or their subordinates, and here they are getting the money, but they're not putting in
Well,
the work.
here's an area where our hotline could come in.
Well,
I
it
mean,
could.
if you are working for a government entity here in the county or the city, and you know of someone that's scamming the system,
Right.
give us a call on the hotline.
Scam in
209.
the system like V-Scam.
Yeah.
Hey,
209-406-8728.
You know somebody that's been hired and they're not qualified because of who they know, not what they know. Give
Yeah.
us a call.
You mean
Well,
like can't make
and
Kelso
the
business?
thing that's disturbing about this particular incident is all of the school board members. Dora, you know about it. Bill Snyder, you know about it. Why haven't you done anything about it? What's the deal? What's the rub? And the thing is how much is this? How much else is going on? Do we have teachers over there teaching our kids that have a degree from some diploma mill? They pay a few bucks and suddenly they get six figures a year, or $75,000 or $80,000 a year, and evidently HR, human resources over there at Merced Union High School District, they don't care. They don't want to know. They don't want to. Let's not muddy the waters. So this is something that's been turned over to the district attorney's office. I don't know if it will be prosecuted or not. It's a violation of the education code. It's not a felony, it's a misdemeanor. But the thing is, folks, it gets to the public trust and the lack of trust the public has. We see a 17% approval rating with Congress, less than 50% with our legislatures. People do not trust government, and this is why. And it's inherent upon the school board. It's inherent upon the superintendent of the school district to make sure your ship is in order. And when you have somebody in a position like that, what does that do to the other employees that maybe went to school, that put the time in at Merced College, tried to find a parking spot, paid for that parking permit,
Did things
got
the
their
right way.
books? Yeah. Why don't you just get on the internet, send $450, and hey, baby, I'm a doctorate.
Right.
This is crap.
But you know what? That wouldn't work unless there was the good old boy network.
Well,
That's the only thing that
and
allows
here's
it
the
to
other
function.
thing, guys.
It's
but here's what we're not paying attention to, and that's exactly it. Parents aren't paying attention. We allow things. For example, my big rail is I like Dora Crane as a person. But you explain to me how the union, the Merced Unified High School District, allows a CTA president to sit on their board. Now, yeah, she's not in charge of the wrangling with the contract for the high school
good old
district,
boy network.
Right.
but that's her buddy.
It's the good old boy network.
So how are you allowed to sit on
How
a
can you
board?
be impartial?
How can you be impartial when your friend over here, and then you have the audacity to get into the newspaper and say, now that the contract is done, we can pay attention.
Now that
and
we've got the
focus."
blood money out of the taxpayer, now we can focus on what we're really supposed to do, which is teach the kids. I got news for you, Miss Crane. That's what you're supposed to do in the first place. You know, it should be the love of your profession, not the love of money.
But that isn't what we get. And what happens is, I always rail on this agenda and pay attention.
Right.
If you got a problem with a teacher, something doesn't make sense, question it. Go to the human resource and say, who is this guy? Where did he come from?
Yeah, and why isn't the school board doing their job? Why isn't the superintendent
busy.
doing their
But
job?
again, allow me to sound this warning bell. We cut off the tax increases. We cut off the bond floats. They're going to come after you through fines and fees.
Right. I hate to tell you, Mr. Testa, we don't agree with your bond float. You want $60 million to fix Hoover. You need to get it from somewhere else because we're paying enough. I still have 15 more days I'm paying the state and the feds and the local government for my tax burden, and yet you come to me with your hat in your hand after you just got Proposition 30. Sorry, no dice. But we'll let the voters decide.
Real quick. Come with me with the bond floats from this point forward, with the estimates in hand.
Right.
Don't tell me the trust me days are over for all levels of government.
That's right.
Give
We
us
can't
the
do it.
$60 million bond float. Trust us to do what we're going to say we're going to do with it.
Trust is gone. The trust is
Bullshit.
gone.
You show us what you're going to do with it specifically, and we're going to track you.
Right. Anyway, folks, I'm going to bring in the actual paperwork. I apologize for not having it this morning. I'm going to give you the case number. I'm going to read from the officer's investigation. I'm going to read the responses that he received from the school district. It's just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And these people are teaching our kids,
ask a
and
dumb
you
question?
wonder why we have the 46 dumbest kids in America out of 50 states. And then when you get to a national level, the United States is 55th in the world. You wonder why it happens because you got people going to diploma mills. Robert, we got to wrap
Boy
up.
Network is what we got.
Well,
What do you got? What do
Never
you got,
mind.
Rob?
no, that's okay.
Okay, well, folks, we're going to be back on Thursday, and you're going to have the Velvet Sledgehammer in studio. You're going to have Steve Colvard. You're going to have me, Casey Steed, broadcasting live from studios. Well, not live, but recording live from Studio C. And it's so good to be back in here with me, amigos. And we really appreciate all of our listeners out there. Don't fret. We're not going anywhere unless management.
And can I leave on one more thought, Case?
Sure.
It's going to take you guys out there, guys, gals, people that are identifying with what we're saying here on this show. You're going to have to get involved.
You got to.
We are at the tipping point here, people.
We can't have this 20. I mean, hey, we were.
This nepotism and this cronyism,
Right.
and this buddy. You get your buddy a job, and the girl that you like a job, and all this stuff. It's only going to stop if you start participating.
Right.
We have to have a massive turnout for the next elections.
We really
Even
do.
if you have to vote for none of the above.
Yeah.
Really, that could be an option for you because there's a lot of people running unopposed.
That's right.
That people don't like the incumbent.
No.
Come out and make a statement.
People have won with write-in, Steve.
Yeah.
People have won with write-in. We have Jerry O'Banion out there, and the West Side is the best side, forgetting completely about his constituency. Nobody running against him. Unbelievable.
We've got June and November
Right.
to make a statement in this community.
Right.
And I don't think we're at a point yet where we can start kicking out the bad yet.
Well,
but we
we're-
can make a statement that we're paying attention now.
Right.
We're up. We're willing to get up and make the effort to get out and inform ourselves and vote. And
Right.
none of the above, or Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck,
Right.
as the person that you're voting for is a
Protest vote.
form of protest. It's telling the people in this community that we don't like the direction you've taken us.
Right.
And
The problem is-
next go round, we come to 2016, we can make massive changes
We
at
can. My
question
every
to you guys-
level and turn this ship around.
My question to you guys is, why isn't anything being done? We sit here and we can go on and on and on with a laundry list of garbage that's allowed to happen, and yet nobody's held accountable. Nobody's feet is put to the fire.
Because the good old boys are watching the good old boys. The only way we're going to turn this ship is kicking the good old boys out on their asses.
And that's what
and
we
the
asked
way
you
we're
to
gonna
do.
that is we have to get candidates
Well-
in the game. We don't have it this go round. We've got a lot of people that are running unopposed.
Right.
We've got we're not there yet, but we can make the first step by getting up, getting to the booth, and voting for none of the above.
Right. Well, folks, we're out of time. We're way over. And, you know, my mom always said a man works from sun to sun, but a woman's work is never done. Robert, do you have anything to go out with?
It says, Cancer, make a point to learn something unique or unusual. I think I'll do that for Thursday's show.
That's his
Horoscope.
zodiac sign, his horoscope. Yes, Steve?
Change is coming. Be part of it.
Be part of it. Folks, tune in Thursday to Citizen Watch.
Profound.
KYOS. AM 1480. Bye-bye.